In this video, you will learn how to use animations in PeachWorlds editor. So two things to notice. First is that we have the Animate and the UI tab, and we will be using both today to create our animations inside our scene. So I have a little scene set up in here with a trainer, a little platform, and some lights around. I think what we would do is we're going to create a camera fly-in. So the camera just goes through the tunnel and arrives in the front of our object. I think we're probably also going to animate the object revealing itself, maybe coming out of the water or something similar. Okay, so let's dive in. Let's open Animate tab. And in here, you can see that we have our scene length, which goes from 1 to 100%. That also can be defined as DVH from 0 to 10,000. I will be using percentage in this case. You can also zoom in into keyframes when you create them to 100 or 1,000%. And if you have a very minuscule changes in your animation, you can use this option. But I'm going to be using 10% for the purposes of this tutorial. You will notice that we also have a little Auto Keyframe toggle here. And what that essentially means is that when it's on, no matter what are you moving in the scene, it will start recording keyframes. So they will appear in here. Okay, so I'm going to just turn it off for a moment. We will start with animating our camera, which is on the left panel right here. So let's click on it. We will see all of the parameters on the right properties panel. We want to enable our camera view by clicking Enter Camera View, so we can see exactly how our camera sees the scene from its perspective. We'll change a field of view to 45, and this is where we can start our animation of the camera. So on the top right properties panel, we can see there is a position, scale, and rotation of our objects. In this case, our forward and backward movements are defined by a Z-axis. So let's put something like 23 and go a little bit further from our object. You will notice that at the moment, no keyframes are appearing in here because we didn't enable Auto Keyframe. So let's enable our Auto Keyframe function and let's start recording the frames. First of all, I would like to record the frame on the Z-axis position of my camera. So we will start from this point. You can do that by just clicking anywhere in those parameters, and you will immediately see that in our animation panel, we will have keyframes already there. We want to have a certain amount of scroll until we reach our object. And in this instance, I will choose 30%. And then I would like to change my camera position to be closer to the object. And this probably would be 9 on our Z-axis here. I'm not very satisfied with this. Probably we want to have 8. Yeah, it's a little bit closer. And as you can see in the animation panel, we already have the keyframes recorded. So now if I'll start moving this little pointer here, you will see that the camera is actually moving in the scene. You can preview your animation by just clicking this little play button on the top right toolbar right here. But what you will notice at the moment that the scene is not going to move anywhere, and I'll explain you why is this the case. So let's go back to our scene. So in the animation panel, you can move your camera. However, as you saw in the preview, we cannot really see the result. So we need to go back to the UI panel here. So the reason we cannot see animation in our preview is because our web page at the moment has no height. And because all of the animations are triggered by scroll, it requires to have a height on your page. So to create that, we will add a basic element just from the top left panel here, basic, and we will choose block. Now we have our block. We need to determine the height of the page. So we will choose, for this instance, 3000 pixels here. And now, if I'm going to start scrolling, you can see that we have enough space to actually have this animation. Let's click our preview button right here and see how it works. And now if I'm scrolling backwards and forwards, you can see that my camera is actually moving forward and backward as well. Perfect. Let's go back to the editor. Let's go back to animate mode. And in this case, we would like to animate my trainer object in the scene. So let's do that. Let's record keyframes of the position at 30%. So let's just click on our trainer's position and on its rotation right here. As you can see in our timeline, now we have our shoes position and rotation keyframes recorded. I'm going to move back, and probably at 10%, I would like the trainer to start coming out of the water. Hide the platform for the moment, and let's change the position and rotation of our trainer. So let's push it down. So you can move it in the scene just like so by clicking on the object and picking the arrow on the desired axis. So in this case, we're just moving it down. And then I'm going to change the rotation of it slightly so it kind of comes up out of the water, facing maybe a different direction. Yeah, that's it. So now if I start moving in my timeline, I can see that the trainer is coming out of the water as the camera approaches. Well, let's have a preview of how our animation is looking like. Let's scroll forward, and as we're moving through our scene, we can see that our trainer comes out of the water as we are animating its rotation and position in our scene. This is basic introduction of how to use animations in PeachWorlds editor.